Welcome to the Cult Classic Horror Show. Every week, you can have the conversations you've always wanted to have about the films you love.
Shut up!
We're gonna get you. Not another peep.
Get rid of your distractions and prepare yourself.
Then lock your door. 5, 6, crucifix.
You got a big surprise coming to you. You're not going anywhere.
Welcome everybody to the Cult Classic Horror Show. Danny Bonin here with you.
And Scotty Bonin here with you guys.
We are the Blood Brothers. And we have a couple special guests with us on tonight's episode. I guess it's night. You guys might be listening to this during the day, but
yes.
You may know Mr. Joe Ridgely from a couple of Facebook Live events in the horror community. We, I guess, hosted on Bad Anger Pictures Live with him, and so we have Mr. Joe Ridgely on the line with us. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you very much for having us.
And we also have George C. Romero on the line, writer, director, producer, and also happens to be the son of the late, great George A. Romero. Welcome, George.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys for having us on here. This is very cool.
We're
glad.
Man.
Of course. We're very excited to have you guys on here.
Yeah, we have plenty of questions, plenty of curiosities, but we're also going to talk plenty about George's new show. It's George C. Romero, Romero Pictures Indie Brigade, where, well, you know what? I'm going to let George, and if Joe wants to put in some words about it too, because Joe will be helping produce. But yeah, before we get into too much of other things, why don't you just give us a brief overview of the show and just the vision you have for it, George?
Absolutely. Look, it's definitely a joint vision with me and Joe. In fact, I wouldn't even be doing it if it weren't for Joe. And, you know, I think what's been great having him produce it was he you know, when we got it off the ground and it became a reality, he was very open to some of the things that I kind of want to do with it. It's not going to be your typical interview show. It is, anybody who knows me or has ever talked to me knows that I don't necessarily have a lot to say, but I don't subscribe to a lot of the I don't know, can I say bullshit on your show?
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Of course. I'm right there with you.
I don't subscribe to a lot of the bullshit that's fed to a lot of these indie people and a lot of these folks trying to come up and trying to really make it. I don't subscribe to a lot of it, and I'm kind of known for that. So, you know, it's going to be largely just talking about all of the good and all of the bad of you know, being an indie filmmaker, being an indie musician, being an indie artist of any kind, you know, in any sort of creative medium. Ultimately, but you know, it's really based in the film and the music side of art. And you know, I think what's really cool is it's going to be a platform where people can truly talk about the challenges they face in the practical execution and application of being a filmmaker, you know, or being an indie musician. And the other side effect of it that I'm hoping to come out of it is I'm hoping that a lot of filmmakers meet a lot of musicians, and a lot of musicians, you know, maybe get their music in some movies or have an opportunity to kind of merge the worlds that way too, by really promoting, you know, hopefully an online community where guests can interact with each other beyond the show if they choose to.
Yeah, no, that's
awesome.
Yeah, that does sound very interesting. And the way it came about, I mean, Joe, was this something that where you contacted George and was like, hey, I have an idea, or I know you're into this, I could help you with it? How did that happen?
Yeah, pretty much. I had him on my show, I think, just over a year ago, and he seemed like a really cool guy, and he was totally into the independent films. So about a month and a half ago, I was thinking about starting a show, and who better to ask than him? And to my surprise, he said, okay.
That is awesome.
Was that something where like you agreed, George, and then sort of helped flesh out the idea of exactly what this show is going to be, or did Joe sort of already have like the basic points figured out?
Joe had a lot of the real bullet points kind of worked out, and I just kind of started bugging him with things that I want to do. You know, a good buddy of mine is one of the top sommeliers in the country, and so we're going to have a fun little segment on each show where he comes on and recommends a good wine pairing for things like rejection and failure, and
Nice.
and success and completion of films, and so we're going to do a whole thing there, and it's going to be a lot deeper than I just made it sound, but
That's awesome.
So Joe's really open to those kind of fun ideas, because I really do want to promote a community, because I think to have a place, a very close-knit community where the only way in is to be a guest on the show, and where you can resource each other for anything from rewrites or polishing of a script, or talk about what lenses you're going to shoot, or the best way to use your phone to shoot a film, or to have places like that where the conversation can continue, I think was really what drew me to the show.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. I don't mean to talk over you, Scotty, if you have some questions as well, but I'm chock full of them. You know me, I'm a curious guy.
Oh, well, yeah, you are the curious.
God, I hope I have enough
answers for sure. No, I just think it's really cool that of what you guys are doing, because people need a community like this. Not just, talking about indie films and indie music, but where they can talk about wine pairings and what they did that day, and then ask about just certain little things. Maybe they can get the questions and answers, for certain lenses that people use, or maybe they have advice like, hey, I'm still writing this scene on this script. Do you guys have any advice for me on this, or kind of like an outlet where people can go and kind of just ask, instead of like being afraid to ask. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also a woodworker on the side, and I'm only saying that because it's relevant, but there's these great communities online of other woodworkers, and they're truly collaborative. And, this business is so full of people who would rather, stick a knife in your back than actually truly collaborate. And I feel like there is this collaborative spirit, and I feel like there are people who really want to collaborate. And I feel like if they've got a place online to do that, I think it'll help more people have fun doing this and stress out less.
Yeah. I'm wondering too that's
awesome.
I'm also wondering, sorry, Joe had some background noise, and so I muted him, and then it wouldn't let me unmute him, so I'm just going to add him back in the call again.
There you go. Yeah, it seemed like there was like a train going in Joe's background for like 1 second.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. Joe, sorry, I muted you for 2 seconds because there was some background noise, but now we're hearing it again. But now it's sort of going away. I don't know.
It's because I had a fan on. I apologize.
All right. Hey, you gotta stay cool. You gotta keep cool.
Yeah, you gotta have like a little like mood fan sound in the background.
I can't sleep without a damn thing, so I hear you.
That's why I was muting my. And
then yeah, I was like, oh, I can mute Joe, but then I was like, oh, I can't unmute him. What the hell's going on here?
That's just Joe.
Yeah, that's just that's just Joe.
It's 100 degrees at night here. So.
Oh, dude, it's been really, really hot here too.
So well,
it sucks.
I'm wondering, George, I mean, obviously you have a lot of experience as a filmmaker, over 23, 24 films that you've somehow been involved in, whether you're producing, directing, writing, and I'm curious if there is a segment of the show where you're sort of there to offer your advice or your experiences to the people that you're interviewing.
Well, if they want it, absolutely. I'm not going to do like a special little segment, but
sure,
you know, I feel like the people that we have on are going to be the people doing this, and if you know, it's not so much 20 questions about your project. It's more of a tell me about your process, and the show itself is designed to just be sort of a back and forth, a real back and forth about a production. You know, I don't care if I have a guest on and we spend 10 minutes or 20 minutes talking about the day-to-day, hassles on set, or telling stories about a light that goes out, or a camera that overheats, or what you do, how you keep it going, and different ways to kind of just, the hardest part about a film is dragging it across the finish line.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So the idea that people would be willing to come on and talk about their process with me, as opposed to just let me, just plug your thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Is where I think the seed for the community is going to be planted, and then I'm obviously going to be an active participant in the online community. Sure. So anybody who wants my advice, can obviously get it there as well.
Yeah. So Joe, you're producing. How many shows are you producing now?
Bad Anger Pictures and this one.
All right. Okay.
I stopped doing my own.
All right. I was just curious. I just see you all over the place,
That's awesome.
I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
No, it's a good thing. It is. Yeah, it's a good thing.
So I was going to ask too. We're obviously big horror fans, and I know that you're a big horror fan too, George. Do you have a passion for like everything, or is horror like your main kind of passion, or do you like anything and everything?
Well, it's interesting because obviously I'm a horror guy through and through from birth.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So it's kind of hard to say that it's not, my number one. But beyond that, doing what I've done for the past, God knows how many years of my life, I've grown an appreciation for almost everything out there. And I've actually grown and developed a really big appreciation for bad movies.
Yes.
What I found is that even in the worst movie you've ever seen, there's something that maybe I never thought of, or somebody else never thought of. There's a piece of gold in everything, and I think a lot of people who make movies that get labeled "quote unquote" bad movies, maybe are not aware of some of the good that appears in their films.
Sure.
And the problem is it's a tricky conversation to have, because I'm not going to go out there and say, hey man, here's a shitty movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But it's got this great thing in it.
Yeah.
So I've developed this appreciation for the whole spectrum, and I've even learned to like a lot of this huge budget shiny stuff, because I watch it from the standpoint of what the audience is looking for. Because if you think about it, in the indie world, in the horror world, we more times than not make what we want to see, and a lot of times we get kind of labeled as over here in this kind of subcategory. But if you really think about where that comes from, it comes from the audience. And what's happening is massive budgets and huge business has conditioned the audience to watch movies in a certain way. So what that means is they're used to seeing edits every so many seconds.
Mm-hmm.
They're used to seeing close-ups shot on certain, lenses. And it doesn't matter if you've got a phone camera or a DSLR or, whatever you're using. There's ways to look at the huge shiny stuff and learn from it and make the indie stuff conform to what the audience's brain is used to registering and still show what we want to show.
Sure.
I love that.
You know what I mean? So I think it's kind of like almost a back door into getting the indie stuff a little bit more in the mainstream.
Yes.
That's
awesome.
I remember just seeking advice. We just finished a film, and it was like, we had a couple of conversations where someone was like, "Oh, that." There were just some interesting statistics, like, they say nowadays that a film has to have so many, it has to cut every 3 seconds, or you have to change angle every so often, and to keep the audience's attention. And really, it's so true if you go into older films like thinking that. Like if you watch something like Rosemary's Baby or even The Exorcist, there's just these long, drawn-out scenes with no cutting and no action going on, and then you move forward to a horror movie put out today, and it must be because of our attention span. I don't know what it is.
It's crazy.
It's because of our attention span. It's because of advertising, and it's because of all of that stuff that basically assumes that the average reading level of America is like, I don't know, 3rd grade or whatever they say. And so I go, well, if they can only read it, whatever, 3rd, 5th, 6th, 8th grade, then that means they can no longer understand these long, beautiful edits. They can no longer sit through the opening shot of Touch of Evil without having to get out their phone. They can,
you know what I mean? Exactly. See, there's
no way they can make it through a 7-minute take.
No.
And so while that's the stuff that we grew up on and that we devoured and that formed us as artists, and while I love the sort of the fringe, maybe the beyond fringe, like there's indie and then there's fringe and then there's like outlaw.
Yeah.
And I think I lean toward more toward the outlaw filmmaking, in that, I want to figure out ways to still do that old school shit, but trick a modern audience into sitting through it and feeling the way I felt when I saw it, right? People don't feel that way when they watch movies anymore.
No.
Yeah. We want to bring that feeling back. See, this is something, this right here, I love talking about this stuff, and this is something that we can talk about on Indie Brigade. I mean, it's just... I love this.
Sounds like it's going to be...
We can talk about it here and continue it on Indie Brigade.
Yeah,
exactly.
The whole conversation. If you want the whole conversation, you got to listen to both.
That's right.
Exactly.
No, I do like it. Sounds interesting because, the show, and we like to tout ourselves every now and then when we have certain interviews with filmmakers, that this episode is an episode for filmmakers, and it sounds like your entire show, I know there's going to be bands and things like that, but for the independent filmmaker, and that's a great learning experience. I know that we've taken the most away from interviews with filmmakers and behind the scenes featurettes and things like that. That's what us kind of guys strive on, and horror fans in general. So
right. And we like to share it, and we like to talk about it, and we like to talk about awesome days we had on set when an effect worked, and we like to talk about days when everything went wrong because there was no hot water.
Yeah.
And
the good and the bad. Yes.
And we like to talk about getting through it. It's the war stories that form our, the emotional scars on our inner creative, right? Whether they be good or bad scars, but those are the stories that form those scars, and those scars are what form the next film. And the next film is what forms 5 films down the road, right? It's all connected. It's all connected. It's all about protecting and nurturing that inner creative. And, you learn so much from talking to filmmakers of all levels and all skills and all experience levels, especially nowadays, because look, man, there's kids out there shooting stuff on an iPhone and editing it on, I don't know what the hell they're editing it on, and they're winning festivals, and their cinematography is stunning. And,
It's
If
crazy.
they can do that with a phone, imagine what they can do when they get a few more under their belt and they step up to a Red camera or an Alexa.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And to there's no foundation for that. There's no community playground where people can just come together and share that stuff with the true spirit of trying to help each other.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Totally.
Tell me a little, like, obviously you grew up around filmmaking and horror and all this. I mean, I don't want to be too vague, but like, what was childhood like? Were you like on and off movie sets? Or did you stay away from that a lot of the time and not get into it till later? Or was it just always around you at all times? Were scripts laying around? I mean, to what extent was that?
no, it was not. It was not like I think everybody thinks. I did get to go to a bunch of movie sets. That was a lot of fun. I had a lot more exposure to it at a young age than I think a lot of kids.
Sure.
Especially back then. Back then there were no DSLRs. There were no. It was film, and you shot 35 millimeter if you were a real movie.
Yeah.
Or if you were an art film that was a real movie, you shot 16, and it was a lot more specialized trade, and that specialty was a lot more guarded back then. So most of the time visitors to set would be treated as visitors to set. They would be made to feel great because they were visiting this awesome thing that was like rarefied air that only a handful of people in the world had ever tasted, right?
Sure.
People who made movies. And I don't just mean directors or producers or writers. I mean everybody who worked on a movie. Like, if back then, man, if you said like you were a grip on movies, people would be like, "Oh man, you're in the movies. That's so fucking cool."
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Because it was, and and anyway, so I did have a lot more exposure than I think most people my age, especially for not living in LA, being in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So it was even rarer there, and it was probably the coolest part of my entire childhood. Was anytime I would get to go to set, like Night Riders, some of his older stuff. And
Yeah.
Anyway, it was all amazing experiences, and there were scripts laying around, and it was cool. When I was a little kid, I used to watch him edit, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was like watching a madman, because he edited on this like Steenbeck, which was a big cool thing.
That's a lost art too,
Yeah, and the very first movie I ever directed, I cut it on a Steenbeck because I wanted to feel what he felt.
Wow.
That's so cool. That is awesome. How cool is that?
Pretty amazing experience.
Yeah.
So there was all that stuff, but for the most part, my childhood was relatively normal. I think as normal as it could have been.
Yeah.
And are you still in the Pittsburgh area, or are you?
No, I'm in Kentucky.
Oh, you're in Kentucky. Nice.
I grew up and born and raised in Pittsburgh, and then I went to LA for nearly 15 years, and now I'm in Kentucky, and it's perfect.
Yeah,
It's
another thing.
It's quiet. Just
another thing with technology these days is you don't have to be in LA. You don't have to be in New York. It's like you can be anywhere.
Everything's taped
That's
now.
right.
I mean,
That's right.
all you need to do is set a tape or record yourself, or just.
I mean, you could argue that there's not a ton of infrastructure to support major film, but if you're making independent films and there's a small crew around, then you're set.
Well, the infrastructure argument's a big argument that a lot of people make in business dealings.
Mm-hmm.
When you're going after financing and you're talking to people, and you're going through that whole part of the process.
Yeah.
you hear things like that in conversations. You hear like, well, I've got, a tax incentive improved for state X. And then somebody else on the phone call says, yeah, but there's no fucking infrastructure there, man. And if there is, it's taken up by big budget shit. And, and so you're going to go in there and you're not going to blah, blah, blah. And then it's this big argument over whether or not you're going to shoot where somebody's going to give you some of your money back to shoot there. And, and now we're in 2019 now, and you can shoot an entire feature film with a skeleton crew of, based on the script and your needs. Like, if you really wanted to go make an independent film and you don't have the money to make an independent film and you don't have the money to do the effects, then write an independent film that relies on acting and make everything implied and go and shoot it with 5 people.
Yeah.
And you've made a movie. You know what I mean? So the infrastructure argument is, I think, going out the window. At least I hope so.
Sure.
With more advancements in technology, I think it's going out the window a little bit more.
Sure.
I totally agree with you.
I'm looking at I have your IMDb pulled up, and it looks like you have quite a lot in post pre-production, not quite out yet. Are these?
Yeah.
I mean, are those a lot that have been by the wayside? I mean, we know how it is. Do you usually take on a lot of productions at once, or?
No, I mean, look, when it rains, sometimes.
Yeah.
But other times, it's the fat years and the lean years. And there's some stuff in there that's still in post because either post funding fell through or the requirements of the finishing of the film changed, or there's some stuff that just hasn't been updated.
I hear you.
Yeah, and that's how it is. It doesn't always update, right? So it's just on there, and you just never know. You've worked I see you work like Tony Todd and stuff and whatnot. Do you have like a favorite actor that you've worked with, or that like is like a icon or like one of your favorite actors or whatnot?
Well, I do. Again, you'll learn about me. I don't like to go out and be like, this guy's awesome, that guy sucks.
Yeah, of course.
The truth of the matter is that I really don't have anything bad to say about any actor I've ever worked with because, they were cast for a reason. They were cast because they were right for the role. And I can remember every single conversation I've ever had with every actor on every set about every piece of dialogue and every piece of direction and every scene they've ever done. And it's, they've all been phenomenal experiences.
That's
even
awesome.
Even if we clash and I say, hey man, I really want you to hit this person in the face with a hammer, and they say, I feel like I'm going to drill their teeth in a dentist chair, and then we argue. Whatever we land on, at least we came at it for our right reasons, and whatever we land on is something that we're both happy and comfortable doing. So, I think they're all good experiences, even aggravating ones.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome.
Do you have? You've produced, directed, written, worked on a good amount of films. Is there, a top few that are emerging as your favorite?
Yeah, I'll tell you my favorite. My favorite, honestly, on set experience was. I wish I could say it was maybe one of my dad's or something. I've got some phenomenal stories about that. And about being on those sets and working on a few of those movies, but my just low-level PA stuff. But I think my favorite on-set experience was The Crucible back in '95. In terms of like a big movie that I worked on.
Sure,
it was.
Awesome. How cool!
It was an amazing experience, and it was like a crew. I don't know. It was a small crew, 70, 80, 100 people, and we were all sequestered on this little island. Making this movie for 3.5 months.
How cool!
That was when you see how the machine really works.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
well-oiled machine.
And I got to see how that big machine operates, and it gave me a lifelong perspective on every other aspect of my own filmmaking.
Huh.
Oh, that's so
cool.
cool.
What would be like maybe your main few takeaways from it, do you think?
Honestly, mostly logistics, right?
Okay.
So, a good friend of mine is a guy named Michael Mandeville, and he's a phenomenal line producer, and he and I have had these long conversations about what he calls screenwriting with a calculator. And it's not to take away from the creative of the screenplay. It's to think about the logistics of a production when writing a screenplay. So I think that was such a phenomenal experience for me to be a part of, because I got to see the machine work, and I got to see when they called penalties, and I got to see things that slowed production down, and I got to see the workflow of a massive production team. And I think about that, and then I've been lucky enough to have that kind of experience a lot over my life. And so when I write with all of that in mind. I write with those logistics in mind, and I write, all the way down to, is this going to be an efficient company move to move from location to location, and how can I flow the story? And,
sure.
Everything, like literally every aspect of my script, at some point in my rewrite process becomes about the production of it and trying to write it to be as efficient a production as I possibly can, because I think that is a good thing that we can do for our investors, is be responsible, right? If we're asking people to put into movies, we want to be responsible to a granular level. And, the first thing obviously is the creative, but then if you can take your creative and rewrite it in such a way that it can be meticulously scheduled down to 15-minute blocks of every day before you ever even think about day one of shooting,
sure.
While you're still in the rewrite phase, I think you're doing yourself and your producers and your director, if you're not directing, and definitely your investors, a huge service that way, because you can say, look, I kept this script to 12 characters. There's 6 day players that we're going to need beyond those 12 characters. I've, kept it to 4 locations, and those locations can logistically and theoretically be located within a couple mile radius of each other if we're smart about where we shoot. And I kept the vehicles to a minimum, and I worked within technological limitations like cell phone stuff, because everybody's tired of hearing, oh my God, I don't have any service.
Yep.
And here's everything I did to make sure at a story level that an efficient crew can come in and break this script down efficiently and then produce it even more efficiently. So you're not overworking your crew, you're not overshooting, you're not overspending, and you're getting everything you need for, and then hopefully, and then some, with whatever money your investors give you to make the film.
Sure.
That's writing is hard, man. There's so much you have to think about and put into, to schedule and to pan out every scene and
it's hard when you're not a writer.
I guess when you're a writer, I guess I don't know. That's another
comes natural to some people, right?
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't do it.
How much of just obviously you're a knowledgeable guy, you've done all these films, and just from what you've been saying, it's like, I would trust that you know what the hell you're doing. How much of that have you obviously garnered from on-set experience? You've PA'd on a lot of things early on, learned a lot that way. But were there times where you were able to just maybe sit down with your dad and pick his brain and be like, hey, how would you do this? Or this is how his business runs. I'm going to run mine similarly.
We had a lot of conversations over the years about process and about, everything. I mean, we have had a lot of the conversations I think people hope we've had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Look, he taught me more about filmmaking.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, for
15 minutes of the right conversation with the man was like a year of film school.
Yeah. So much knowledge, so much, because he did everything. He knew how to do everything and did everything himself, and it's just, oh God, I couldn't imagine.
It was less about here's the buttons you push, and more about like I get a little bit, when I talk about it.
Yeah, sorry, man. Yeah, we didn't mean to bring it up.
Right. But I mean, it's like here's what it is, right? When he would talk about things that he found artistic or beautiful, or movies he liked, or things that caught his eye, or things that inspired him, he would light up a room.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I bet.
And that's what I learned from him the most, was to find that thing that other people don't see when they look through the viewfinder. And the way to do that is to look at the world around you a little bit differently than most people. And I did that anyway, but I think learning how to take that to the next level from him at a very young age was a major formative thing in my inner creative that then allowed me to go out and seek my own inspiration and not just say, hey, Dad, give me a list of movies to watch.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like, and by doing that, then as I got older and we would have conversations, those conversations would get deeper because I went off and had my own inspiration and my own frame of reference developed that was born out of kind of his love for it. And so our conversations, we had some pretty crazy conversations.
Yeah,
that's so awesome. That is so cool.
Did you, Scott? Scotty was saying, is horror your thing? And obviously it is. But I'm wondering if there's subgenre within horror that you basically grew up loving. Like, me, I love found footage and I love possession movies. Obviously, you might be a zombie guy because of where you come from, but I don't know. Is there a certain subgenre that you gravitate towards or even like to stick to in your writing?
You know what? I think more psychological.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff.
Definitely.
Is really, especially the older I get, I love to, I love to see all the gore just as much as I always have. But if there's maybe more.
Yeah. It makes you think a little bit more.
Yeah. I love to make it even more. But I think beyond that, it's going to be the truly psychological stuff that is, that's probably shaped my writing a lot more than anything else. But hey man, I love all horror movies. I don't really think I could probably say there's a handful I've watched that I didn't really like, but
yeah, we can attest to that too.
Yeah, I mean maybe a pretty big handful. But
yeah,
but that didn't make me enjoy watching it any less.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
you guys feel the same way, right? Like you can watch something that you might personally actually find offensive, or you might watch something that you might personally find just cliche, but you still enjoy putting it on and watching it.
Yeah.
On some level, right? Like on some level.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where, like
earlier, like you find that golden nugget, that silver lining within it somewhere,
or it's you look back on it fondly. In the moment, you're like, "Good God!" But then 2 days later, you're like, "Yeah, that was a good time."
Yeah. Like 2 days later, that golden moment hits you, and you're like, "Hey, you know what? That movie stuck." But when he plucked out that eyeball, that was pretty sweet.
Yeah,
exactly. That was awesome. The dialogue before that was horrible, but that eyeball plug was amazing.
Yeah, and hey, that one moment made it worth watching. Made it worth your time.
Do you have if I could ask you, like, Do you have a favorite, or even a few favorite, what you would call, I don't know, older horror films? And then do you have a couple favorite that have recently come out?
You know what? This is one of those things, man.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah, I know. Like, I don't think there's an older horror movie that I don't like.
Yeah.
I got a 15-year-old boy, and I guess about 3 years ago, he said, "So you make horror movies?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, you want to show me one?" And I said, "Yeah, like one of mine or just a horror movie?" And he said, "Either."
Nice.
And so I said, "Okay, well, you know what? Here's Halloween."
Yeah.
Nice.
You know, and and so it's been the past 3 years with him has been watching him turn into me when I was his age.
Oh, that's awesome.
And like getting to go back and show him all the movies that shaped me.
Mm-hmm.
And he loves it. And so I can honestly say there are no old horror movies that I didn't like, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember, I'll tell you, my dad used to talk about this movie called Tales of Hoffman all the time. And I remember I got a Laserdisc player once when I was a kid. And,
Nice.
and I found it on Laserdisc, and I used to watch it all the time and study it because my dad would talk about it. And so that was one that I just showed my boy, and it was cool because when it was over, he looked at me and I said, "Well," and he started talking to me, and he was saying, like, I swear to God, he was saying the same kind of shit I said to my dad after I watched it.
Nice.
And it was really, really cool.
It's like, hey, I'm having deja vu here. Wait. That's awesome. I mean, to feel your own kid, that's so cool.
Yeah.
It was a pretty great moment. You know, like it was. He just started back to school, and a couple weeks ago, he was like, he mowed a bunch of lawns this year, and he earned some money. And I said, "Well, what do you want to spend your money on?" And he's really into like vinyl and like cassettes and Walkmans, all the stuff from like the 80s, right?
Yeah.
And
Bringing it back.
yeah, so he was like, "I want to get a good like receiver so that I can listen to all this stuff and watch these movies." And I said, "Okay, cool." So we got him like a receiver for his room and everything. And then it was like a week before school started. I said, "What are you going to do?" He said, "There's nothing really to do today. I'm just going to watch some movies." And I said, "Hey, cool." And he goes in the living room and he grabs like the Nightmare on Elm Street box set.
Yes.
That's so cool.
I'm like, "Okay, I'll see you tomorrow." He said, "See you tomorrow."
Yep.
I can't wait.
Binge watch those. Be careful with those.
My kids are young, and I can't wait to share the experience with them. My wife despises horror, and which is
she'll watch them from time to time,
which is unfortunate because she tricked me. She liked it when we were dating, and then we got married, and she didn't like it anymore.
Oh, man, come on!
I know. But she's gonna have to deal with it. She's the kind where my daughter's almost 3, and if it's rated like PG, she's worried. You know, it's not G, it's PG. I was like, "Oh, come on!"
Yeah,
I'm like, she can sit here and watch House 2 with me. That's like all comedy. You know,
yeah, we were just watching House 4, and I have a 7-month-old, and my wife's like, "Oh, I don't know if she should be watching." I'm like, "She's not going to remember this. She's 7 months.
No, that's
she
young
can watch
enough.
this.
She can watch whatever you want her to.
It's just kind of funny, you know." But
yeah,
she won't remember it, but you know, maybe 40 years from now there'll be these weird like flashes.
Yep.
From House 4.
Exactly. Wait, why am I experiencing this, Dad? I have no idea.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I mean, is your son at all? You said he's into the throwback things. That's pretty awesome. But is he into filmmaking at all, like you are?
Well, you know, he really likes it. I put a camera in his hands last year, and man, he took to it like a duck to water.
Wow.
And
Nice.
it was pretty cool. He threw me the memory card when he was done, and I said, all right, I'll watch it later. And he went to bed, and I threw it in the computer. And I asked him the next day, I said, was that all you? He said, yeah. I said, none of your friends helped you with none of it? He said, no. Huh. And it was amazing, man. The kid's got an eye.
Wow.
Nice.
But you know what? I'll tell you, I ain't gonna push it. But I will say this: if nothing would make me happier than if that's what he chose to do with his life, and if it is, then I'll do everything in my power, and I'll die trying to help him.
Yeah.
Yes, that is so cool. Yeah, following in Dad's footsteps, and you're 100% there for him. How cool would that be? And you know, if he doesn't, you'll be there no matter what. But that's we all have a passion. We all have a passion for it, and that's just hopefully our kids do the same thing too.
Yeah, well, you know, like it's a tough business, man. Nobody helps anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got that right.
And look, I had a lot of conversations with my dad, and we talked about a lot of stuff, and he influenced me, but he never like, you know, gave me a boost.
Yeah,
which made me happy because I didn't want to be that kid. If I would, you know, and it makes me proud that he didn't want to do that because, you know, back then, kids who became whoever they became because they were someone's kid ended up one way, and I'm really proud of the fact that I didn't end up like them.
Yeah.
So, you know, it is what it is, and you know, awesome. my dad had to fight his way for every step of his career, and you know, I think the greatest gift he ever gave me was to put that fight in me.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
You gotta. It's a tough world, like you're saying. You know it way better than us and most people, and to have that skill to be able to push through yourself, I'm sure is priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, look, here's the best piece of advice I ever got about the entertainment industry, and they call it the town, right? This town.
Yeah.
So this town is the only town where you can die from encouragement.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah,
you guys know exactly. If you really think about that, you guys know exactly what that means.
Yeah.
Hey, man, you're doing great. Just, you know, give it a week. Give it another couple weeks, man. Hey, everything's going great. Everything's fine. Money's in the bank. We're gonna make this. This is gonna happen. Just another month.
It kills you. Yeah,
it's so true.
Yes. Oh man.
And so it becomes how do you stay sane and how do you survive during the times between when you get to be one of the luckiest people in the world and make a movie.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
You know?
No.
Well, on that note, though, I mean, George, you got to talk about the collaborations and the generosity that you have with other filmmakers, up-and-coming filmmakers, and their projects. I mean, that's totally behind the scenes, and some you don't get credit at all for.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. What? You getting your hands in everything, helping out? I mean, I'd love to hear about it.
No, seriously, what do you mean?
I've seen enough online and everything, and speaking to you and some people that you have worked with, certain indie projects, short films, and you being there for other people.
Yeah, do you often...
Shit, man, nobody's ever there for me, so you know what? The best thing I can do is be there for as many people as I can be there for, right? And if, you know, like... Here's the thing. If I meet you, if I shake your hand, if I look you in the eyes and, you know, you're a good person and you're doing it for the right reasons and you're not just trying to be Insta famous or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're in it for the art, if you've got that thing behind your eyes that that says you've been chasing this fucking art for so long that you're about to, you know, smash into a brick wall.
Yeah, explode.
You know, I consider it an honor to be there to try to help people, as many people as I can. I mean, it's, you know, it must get off my nose, you know. I mean, like none of us indies get paid shit for what we do, and you know, we don't do it to get rich. Yeah, you know,
we do it.
Hell, we don't even do it to get famous. Yeah, we do it because it's, you know, it's all we do.
It's passion. Yeah, we love it.
If somebody called me tomorrow and said we want you to direct a $20 million movie, you bet your ass I'd go do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you bet your ass I'd do it as best as I could do it, you know?
Can I be your gopher?
Yeah.
I think some of these, like, some of these 180 million, 200, you know, 500, you know, $1 trillion movies, I don't think I would want to direct one of those. But, you know, a legitimate budget for a legitimate film, you bet your ass I'd go do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Was it?
But that's not going to change how I feel about who I am and what I do, and it's not going to change the fact that whenever that's done, I'm going to go back and do another, you know, movie for nothing because I got inspired to do it.
Yeah. And that's where the fun is.
There's so many people who you meet who, you know, they've got a movie or they've got an idea or they've got something and they got to get it out and they don't know how to get it out. And, you know, I've got a handful of people that I guess call me their mentor. If that's what you're talking about, Joe.
Absolutely.
I just try to help out where I can.
Did you? I'm curious to know. Awesome. You said about 15 years in LA. Was that? And now you're in Kentucky. Was it something that turned you off about LA, or just the people, or you just wanted to get the hell out of there?
You know what? It was. No, I wasn't. It's a long story.
You don't have to get into it.
That might be for another episode.
It involved a strip club. And no,
like that. It was just. It was time. You know. I mean, like there's only so much that you can do, and you know, staying in one of the most expensive cities in the country, trying to survive while staying true to the person that I am and the artist that I am. You know, it was time for me to get out of LA.
Yeah.
And so I went to North Carolina to my best friend's farm there by way of Texas for a couple of months. And then in North Carolina, he's a musician and he was going out to hit the country, you know, do like a road tour to pay his bills. And he said, come with me. So we hit 48 states in like 18 weweeks or something like that.
Nice. And, travel nation. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I shot a road doc about it. And it was one of the most amazing experiences of my entire life.
Oh yeah.
And during that time, I realized exactly why I had left LA, and you know, I love Los Angeles. I love all my friends in Los Angeles. I love everybody that I do business with out there. Absolutely, 100%. And I can go there if I need to go there for business. But man, there's so many people, and it's expensive as hell. And even if I had all the money in the world, it's like stupid expensive to live there. And, you know what I mean?
It's not worth it.
And it's so fucking fast paced, and it's so, you know, like this breakneck speed. And when you do it long enough, you realize, look, I've got these solid relationships. I'm not going to lose my friends if I move somewhere else. I'm going to go chill out for a while.
Yeah.
And, you know, and you're not sure where that's going to be. And so you just go and kind of go with the flow for a minute and see what happens, you know. And then anyway, on that road tour, we passed through Kentucky, and I met I met my now wife,
awesome.
and my now son. So, and so, that turned out to be like one of these things where you look at the universe and you say, I don't know what the fuck you got in store for me, but I'm just going to go with it. So hit me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your life changes for the better.
Yeah.
And,
wait. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
What a blessing, man. I mean, if you wouldn't have gone on that tour, that road trip, I mean, you might not have met your wife and had your son. Right. So it's all a blessing. It's so cool.
Yeah. It is. It's
all happens for a reason.
It's been a crazy life, but it's been, it's mine.
Heck yeah, it is. You're damn right it is.
Well, I don't want to, I don't want to keep you all night long. We're getting close to the hour mark here, but I do want to touch back on just the show again. That's sort of what we want to push out there, the new venture, and we're excited for it. I'm excited to listen to it just to get that input from other filmmakers and just to see what everyone's process is. And
that collaboration is just gold. It's just so priceless.
And I'm sort of wondering, I mean, is this something where you're going to, hey, send me emails here, filmmakers, and we'll see, like, what's your process for picking who you interview on the show?
Well, maybe Joe could speak to that a little bit better because he's producing the show and handles all of that stuff. So, other than the fact that we both talk about who we're going to have on the show, maybe Joe, you could speak to the process.
I hope he's still there.
So that's the process.
Oh no, I am actually here. I'm just absorbing.
Great process.
Yeah.
Thinking.
Yes. I did make a post, and I saw who actually was interested, and the more that I looked at it, I was like, holy crap. It's amazing the people that were wanting to get involved. So we came up with a list, and it's going to be different topics, different times. So it's not like some huge mathematical thing.
Sure. That's, we're used to that. We're like, what movie should we cover next week?
we take polls at times, or like we just straight up like ask like some of our fans, like, hey, what do you guys want us to cover? So that's just the way to do it.
And you got to understand, it's awkward as shit for me to be on this side instead of the other side asking questions.
Sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure.
I think the process for the conversations on the show is going to be very much kind of like this one was, where I'm just going to start talking to people and
I love that.
Get a conversation going. I mean, I'm not much for preparing.
And it's going to be a round table kind of thing. And
and I hope that the people who come on don't prepare.
Yeah. No, we I don't really know if I want to admit it, but I usually go into almost every interview that way.
I mean, I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, because
how else are you going to be genuine? How else are you going to be the best you?
Sure.
You're genuine. You're yourself. Exactly, and you speak from the heart, and it's just it comes out better that way. I think.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Right. You don't want a cookie cutter or anything, and
yeah.
Well, cool. This is a Facebook Live show, right, Joe?
That is correct. It's going to be on Romero Pictures Indie Brigade Facebook page, and then we're going to drop them off in YouTube and possibly some other areas. We're feeling it out right now.
Okay.
I see you guys are on Instagram too. I'm going to follow you right now. So that's awesome.
Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. We got a whole 3 views on YouTube so far, George.
All right. You got to start somewhere.
That was on me.
Nice.
Cool. Well, so we'll be able to find it. You guys listening, make sure you go to Romero Pictures Facebook page so you can, stay tuned to what's going on with the show, where it's all going to be available at. And obviously, the best place is to just catch it live on Facebook. I'm assuming you'll be fielding some comments and things like that, Joe, and you guys can be part of the conversation.
Absolutely. There will be live on-screen comments and Q&A. So,
yeah.
Awesome.
All by the seat of our pants.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, gosh, I think I got everything I wanted to get from you guys. Was there anything else you wanted to sort of announce or say before we call it?
Just episode 1 is September 6th at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's Romero Pictures Indie Brigade. The Facebook page is that. I don't think there's like an @ thing.
Sure.
Tune in. It's going to be fun. And I first of all, I didn't even get to say this because we just jumped right in, but it means the world to me that you guys had me on here, and I love what you guys do, and I love what you're doing, and it's a real honor to be here and talking with you guys. So I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much.
Well, we appreciate you guys too. Yeah, thank you.
You guys.
Likewise, George, man. Right back at you, man. So we really appreciate it. It's an honor to have you guys on too. So and talk to you for sure. So.
And as I mentioned to Danny, you guys got it twofold with the indie thing, the band and the movie. So
yeah, we do.
It would definitely be an honor to have you guys on sometime.
Oh, we'd love to do it.
We'd love to be on for sure.
We'd love to do it. Yeah. So
maybe we could introduce you guys to each other, and then you could get your music in your movies.
Yeah, you never know. Our music's a bit extreme, but you never know.
Yeah, you never know.
I hesitated to even put it in our own film. Our director was like, our directors were like, you got to get to. You guys gotta write something but the band's music. I was like, I don't really want to put our band's music in this film.
Yeah, it's so freaking cool though. You hear Scotty's voice on here, and then you hear the song.
He's just screaming.
Yep.
This is true. Yes, but
I'm a different person when I'm singing. No, I'm actually the same person, just having a lot of fun.
Yeah, right.
Right on.
Yeah. So, well, cool, guys. Thanks again for joining us. I'm sure we'll keep in touch. I'm sure we'll cross paths again in the near future.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And and thank you guys listening. Make sure that you go check out the Romero Pictures Facebook page and tag along.
Indie Brigade as well. There.
Yeah. All right. We'll catch you guys on the next episode.
You guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Don't you blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
Oh, yes. There will be blood.